Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. So guys, there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. But I've just been messaged by one of my subscribers about Al Heyman, Canelo Alvarez, and the fact that Eddie Hearn's mentioned this as well in an interview with DAZN. I don't know if you guys have seen it. If you haven't seen it, oh yeah, before I go into it, we're going to be live in probably about an hour or so. When this video gets up, it'll probably be about 30-40 minutes probably left before the live stream. 8 o'clock tonight, 8 o'clock, so probably another hour and a bit's time I'll be live. We'll do an hour and a bit, see how it goes, and then we'll do one tomorrow hopefully as well. But yeah, apparently Mr. Al Heyman is willing to do the Caleb Plant fight, but he wants Canelo Alvarez to sign a 3-fight deal. Now, we know that Canelo Alvarez, the reason he split from Golden Boy, got out of his contract with DAZN, because he wanted freedom. He wanted the freedom of not being able to be stuck to one promoter and one platform, because that would mean he can make fights with whoever he wants. But as Eddie Hearn mentioned, that even though he did that, it still seems to be a very, very difficult thing to make these fights. And it's not easy, even though he is a free agent. Canelo Alvarez, from what Eddie Hearn was saying, is willing to fight on Fox. He hasn't got a problem fighting on Fox if they make an offer. But it seems like Fox want to tie Canelo down. Al Heyman wants to tie Canelo down to a couple of fights. And as Eddie Hearn said, no, we don't want to do that. We want one fight. Give us an offer for that fight and we'll be happy. But it's kind of like Al Heyman doesn't want to just give Canelo one fight, him make a shed load of money. And with the fact that Canelo would be a favorite and most people would expect Canelo to beat Caleb Plant, that would mean that Canelo becomes undisputed and then does what he wants. Al Heyman doesn't want that. Al Heyman wants to tie Canelo down to a couple of fights, which I think Canelo wants that freedom, because there are fighters that Canelo could fight. If he fights 3-fight deal, he could fight Charlo and Benavidez back to back. But Canelo wants that freedom. Canelo doesn't want to have to do that. He doesn't want his moves to be planned, because if he signs with Al Heyman, his next fights will probably be Charlo and Benavidez after Plant. So they will be his 3 fights. But Canelo wants freedom. Just say if Canelo says after beating Plant he wants to go to light heavyweight and fight Beterbiev, he can't do that, because now he's with Fox. So this is what I'm saying. That's the whole purpose, or the whole reason behind Canelo wanting to get freedom. That was the whole purpose of Canelo wanting to become a free agent, so he can get that freedom. But he can't get it if he signs a 3-fight deal, because then he'll be tied down, doing what he did. Now, the reason why he signed a couple of fight deal with DAZN, because his plan was a 3-fight deal, was because his plan was, he knew what he was going to do. He was going to fight Callum Smith, then he was going to fight Yildirim, and then he was going to fight Saunders. That was what he was going to do. That was his plan all along. But with Al Heyman, it's kind of like, well, okay, I'll fight Plant and become undisputed, but then you'll be tied down. You'll probably have to fight Benavidez and Charlo. And he doesn't want to be tied down to do what they have to do, or they want him to do, because that would what he would have to do, because who have PBC got? The only 2 that they've got is Benavidez and Charlo that Canelo would be interested in, really, the big fights. But there's other fights out there. If Canelo wants to fight Golovkin, or Canelo wants to fight Beterbiev or Bivol, he wants to be a free agent, because that might be the next move, because we already know that Canelo's not willing to go down to 160. So Canelo Alvarez wants that freedom. He wants to be able to do what he wants to do. And it seems like Al Heyman wants him. The only way Al Heyman's going to want to do that fight with Plant is he wants him to sign a fight package with them. And Canelo's not willing to do that. And I don't blame him. I don't blame him, because the whole purpose of with him, breaking free of his contract was that was the reason. That was the reason of him breaking free. And obviously by him, signing to Al Heyman, that defeats the object, defeats the purpose of him trying to become a free agent. So I don't think this is going to be easy for Canelo. I think this is going to be very, very tough to make this fight. Eddie Hearn has said if the fight doesn't get made this week, they're moving on. They're moving on. So if Canelo's fight with Caleb Plant don't get made this week, they're moving on. Now, we know that they've sent an offer to Caleb Plant's team. I don't know whether Fox have sent a reciprocal offer, but even if they have, I think their offer would be for a 3-fight deal. That's the problem Canelo has. So I think it's not about them putting the offer up. It's about the fact that Canelo doesn't have a problem fighting on Fox. He has a problem with probably signing a 3-fight deal. Unless they were to offer him silly money for a 3-fight deal, right? Which I don't even think it's about the money. I just think it's about freedom and Canelo wanting to be able to do what he wants to do. I don't really think it's about the money. I don't really think Canelo, it's about the money, him signing with Fox. I don't. It's about him having the freedom to do what he wants. See, the reason why he's still wanting to fight on DAZN because they're offering him a lot of money. But he's not got a contract with DAZN. There's no contract with DAZN at all. He's doing on a fight-to-fight basis with them. Even with Eddie Hearn. He isn't tied down to Eddie Hearn. He isn't tied down to DAZN. But he's got a great working relationship with DAZN. Now, he doesn't want to sign with Al Heyman and be fixed. Because if you're fixed, then that freedom's not there. And Al Heyman's got limited fighters at that weight class. You know, it's not like he's got 10, 12 fighters that Canelo can fight. And even then, Canelo wants to do what he wants to do. He's got light heavyweights that he's looking to fight. If he beats Caleb Plant, why does he want to stay at 168? You know, there's only really Benavidez there. Charlo's not willing to come to 168. And I don't know whether Canelo's going to be willing to meet him at catchweight. Canelo probably won that fight at 168. But even if he does a catchweight, Canelo might not want to fight Charlo. He might want to fight Beterbiev or Bivol, which are more dangerous fights for him. Are seen as fights that people would actually think that Canelo could lose. So Canelo might want to go down that route. So this is what I'm trying to say, that for Canelo, it's not about the money. It's about the freedom. It's about having that freedom, and so he can do what he wants. Not so he's tied down to one promoter and he has to do what they have to do, or he has to fight the fighters that they've got. Because I can understand from Al Heyman's point of view why they want to tie Canelo down. Of course. Like, you don't want Canelo to come to your platform, earn a shed load of money, do great business for you. You want to make as much as money from him as you can. And by having a free fight deal, imagine Canelo fighting on Fox for 3 fights. Imagine what that would do for their platform. Imagine the pay-per-view numbers on their platform. Imagine if Canelo fights Plant, then fights Benavidez, then fights Charlo. Imagine what that does for Fox. See, everybody's looking at it from their point of view. And this is why it's going to be hard for Canelo, because at the end of the day, every promoter, even Bob Arum, for example, he knows that whoever Canelo fights, Canelo's probably going to be the favorite to win. Are you going to let Canelo fight one of your fighters and potentially beat your fighter, make a shed load of money, you know, weaken the reputation of your star? Because Plant's a huge jigsaw piece to the puzzle in this. And also, he's an undefeated world champion. Al Heyman doesn't want to let him up and weaken his reputation by not being able to, like, if he was to lose, that's what would happen. And by not gaining anything, or he'll gain something from it because that pay-per-view would do great. But he wants to gain as much as he can from Canelo by pinning him down to a 3-fight deal so he can gain from Canelo fighting on their platform. So I can understand why Al Heyman wants Canelo to sign a 3-fight deal. But the whole purpose of Canelo doing what he did and breaking away from DAZN was the fact that he wanted freedom. And I don't know. I don't know what happens with this situation. Hopefully, they can make the Plant fight. Eddie Hearn said that they've got 1 week to sort this out. Otherwise, Canelo's going to move on. And I have to correct myself that apparently I saw Boxing Scene report yesterday that Beterbiev is linked to unifying with, what's his name, Smith. But actually, that's not true. Mike Coppinger has actually come out and said that Smith is in negotiations to fight Danny Jacobs. He's got he's looking to have a 2-fight deal. I can't remember the first guy he was going to fight, and then he was going to fight Danny Jacobs in his second fight. So that really rules out the Beterbiev fight. So Beterbiev needs an opponent. And that could easily well be Canelo. Because Eddie Hearn has already said, if the Plant fight doesn't happen, it's Bivol and Beterbiev next. So those are the guys that he's going to be looking at. Those are the guys that Canelo's going to be looking at if the fight between him and, you know, what's his name, Plant doesn't come off. That's the fight that Canelo's looking at. So if I was Plant, I'd want that fight. I'd want that fight desperately because, like I said, he's probably going to have to fight a Benavidez, right? And he could lose that fight. So if I was Plant, I'd really hope that this Canelo fight can come to fruition because, like I said, you've got a lot to gain. You've got all the belts on the line and the fact that, you know, it's going to be 5 times, 6 times, 7 times your highest payday. It makes full sense for Caleb Plant to have that fight. But again, it may be out of Caleb Plant's control. We just don't know. For the sake of getting an undisputed champion, I hope it can happen. But I said all along that Al Heyman, and I said this on when I was on Last Bell Boxing, that I said all along that Al Heyman's not going to want to let Caleb Plant go over to DAZN. It's going to be very difficult. He may do in the end, I don't know. But he's going to want that fight on Fox. And the whole reason Canelo, you know, broke away from DAZN, so then he can have freedom, so he can fight on different So you see, the thing is, Canelo hasn't got a problem fighting on Fox. Canelo will fight Caleb Plant on Fox. See, a lot of people said, oh no, the fight will happen on DAZN. No, Canelo hasn't got a problem fighting him on Fox. The problem is the 3-fight deal. That's the issue. That's the issue. I don't really think he wants to commit to that deal. Basically, he doesn't want to commit to a 3-fight deal because it doesn't make sense for him. It takes away his freedom. Because if he signs with Al Heyman for 3 fights, he knows he can't fight Beterbiev in those 3 fights. He can't fight Bivol in those 3 fights. He has to fight his fighters in those 3 fights. And that's the issue, really. So that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think this Canelo-Caleb Plant fight will happen? Leave your thoughts. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.